Hey everybody, welcome back to the K2N Online Paddle School. We're back here on YouTube, and this week we're talking about understanding downward pressure in the paddle stroke. This tip will be applicable for our seated paddle sports. So that's looking at the outrigger canoe and the surf ski predominantly, but if you're using a K1 or in a canoe, these ideas still translate over. In coaching, when we talk about movement and giving cues to solve and remedy poor movement, we try to give a simple cue that solves a bigger issue. If you've browsed this YouTube channel, you will see there are a ton of videos about technique, and if you go on the K2NOnlinePaddleSchool.com, there are 200 videos about technique breakdown across multiple different disciplines. What this means is when we talk about paddling technique, it can become infinitely complex. If we can solve a lot of these big issues with simple cues, we can translate these ideas over quick. The problem with very simple cues is not understanding the overall big picture. The point of this YouTube channel and the online school's endeavor in getting useful information out is to give paddlers an idea of what the larger scope of what they are trying to achieve with their movement is. I can promise you, if I could solve all of your paddling issues in a 5-minute video, then I would have already done it. But 5 minutes is an insufficient amount of time to convey large ideas, but we can give simple cues within those videos. The problem with simple cues is they don't give you a window into what you're really trying to achieve. So the cue fixes one aspect of your stroke at the cost of a bunch of other issues going out the window. When we have an overall grasp on what we are trying to achieve, we can use these simple cues to fix the problem without giving up the other aspects of the stroke that make us so successful. Downward pressure in the stroke is one of my favorite things to convey to people. When people have never heard of this concept of using their upper body to push down onto the water, they look at me like I just discovered fire. When we interact with the water, the simple thing that we think of is pulling on the top of the water to propel the boat forward. So when I pull this way, it creates force to move the boat this way, right? So this relationship we can feel and conceptualize very simple. Pushing down on the water creates forces in this direction, but somehow it moves a boat in that direction. Within the outrigger canoeing world, there is coaching that is readily available here on YouTube that talks about downward pressure in a very generalized way. But when we travel through different worlds into the surf ski community, not many paddlers have heard of downward pressure before. This simple idea is applicable across every seated paddle discipline and arguably all paddling disciplines. So first, I'll break down the big idea and what we're trying to achieve with downward pressure. As we take the paddle stroke, the best way to visualize what we are doing with the paddle in relation to the craft is we are sticking the blade into a spot in the water. As we plant the blade into that spot, it stays in that location as the boat moves forward to that spot. As we begin to pass that location, we begin to remove the blade out of the water and we set the blade in front of us again. The more force that we can produce to move us to the blade faster allows the boat to glide further as we take the blade out of the water. This glide in between strokes is in direct relation to how powerful our stroke was. So even with that concept, there are many paddlers, again, that stick the blade in the water and think about moving the blade to their body. The idea that we're looking for is moving the boat to the blade and moving us forward. One of the reasons that this is hard to grasp is because we are interacting with water. We typically do not interact with that substance, and how that hydrodynamics plays out is different than what we do here on dry land in the more physical world. As we put the blade into the water to lock into that position, the more pressure that we can put into the paddle and into the blade and into the water, the faster the boat is going to move to that point. So some of the forces that we can use can be pulling and pushing mechanics, but the greatest force that we can use is downward pressure because it incorporates our body weight onto the blade. That simple transfer of our body weight onto the paddle itself creates so much more force to move the boat to that point quicker. Downward pressure helps stabilize the blade in that spot to grab and hold more water and stay distinctly in that spot. As we are pushing down, we can create more torque with the additional movements and leverages our body creates. Everything is good with downward pressure. Whether we're using a canoe stroke, the top hand and the bottom hand are pushing down, the torso turns towards the blade, and everything we're doing pushes down. The same idea if we're using a kayak paddle. As the blade goes down, this top hand and top shoulder are distinctly coming diagonal and downward towards the water to help stabilize the blade and propel the boat forward to that spot. When doing video reviews, I will have a blue box under the boat, and the best way to conceptualize this is all of our forces with our upper body need to go down into that box. If my top hand pushes forward, my forces are going in this direction in front of me, and they are not going down into the box under me. If my bottom hand is pulling up towards me, those forces are coming up and away from the water, and we want these forces to go down by pushing into the water, into the blue box under us. Everything we use for leverage to move the boat forward is found under us, and we want to direct all of our upper body forces downward in that direction. Again, on the K2NOnlinePaddleSchool.com, there is 24 hours worth of movement. What to do with the top hand, what to do with the bottom hand, how to interact with the water, and bringing all these directional forces together. This is a simple overview of using your upper body movement to produce downward force onto the water under us to move the boat forward more effectively. Our body creates opposing forces, and the movement of our legs and torso is to come up and create a stable environment up. That allows us a platform to use our upper body to push down. This is where going into pushing down can be a detrimental cue if you don't understand the entire picture that we're trying to achieve with paddle technique. The problem with downward pressure is the hands can move independent of the body to push downward, not using the rotational forces of the body to create this downward force, or collapsing at the rib cage and using too much of the body to come downwards. So now we're chasing this simple cue of pushing down into the water, but now the whole body is getting out of position trying to achieve this cue. By understanding upright posture, how to use the legs, understanding our rotation, and then applying that downward pressure, we can create a platform for pushing down more effectively. If we do not understand these other cues and the big picture of our movement, we will simply collapse and produce no power. Overall, don't let simple cues that you don't fully understand put your body into a poor position. Every cue that is derived into a single sentence is not enough information to protect you from all of the movement issues that can arise from a simple concept. In surf ski, using the top hand to go across the horizon, this is great to try and trick a paddler into turning their whole body by using a simple cue. The issue is you can move your hand across the horizon without turning your torso. And this means that this energy is going in this direction, which is not going downward into the blue box under us. In outrigger canoe, you will hear reaching further forward, and we can reach further forward to a point with good posture and can't go any further. But I can now start morphing my body into this terrible position to get 2 or 3 more inches. By extending out of position, I am very weak and vulnerable at the first part of the interaction with the water in lieu of getting 3 or 4 more inches out of the stroke. So reaching further comes at the cost of sacrificing everything that makes your stroke better. If we understand prioritizing posture and using your rotational forces, you can only reach so far without losing your effectiveness. There are hundreds of other simple cues that I could go through, but we'll try to surmise it and keep it simple. This gives some clarification on what downward pressure is and how you can incorporate it into your paddle stroke. Understanding that you don't want to sacrifice your rotational ability and your upright posture to create this downward force is vital. This gives you an idea of the big picture that we're trying to achieve with the paddle stroke to make you more effective. Thank you guys so much for checking out this week's quick paddle tip. If you have any questions, if you have any other paddle cues that you want me to read and to make sure that you're not going through bad movement, you can reach out to me on the K2NOnlinePaddleSchool.com via our live chat, or you can email me anytime. If you're out there and you want me to collaborate with you, your channel, the individual, your business, show off a product that you have, show off items that you use, reach out to me anytime. I am open to working with other paddlers within this community to put quality content into the YouTube space. Thank you guys so much for supporting this YouTube channel and the K2NOnlinePaddleSchool.com. And we'll see you guys next week for the next quick paddle tip.